impianti tecnologicamente avanzati c'era già, voglio dire, ma sta sempre più crescendo questo interesse e questa possibilità di impianti tecnologicamente avanzati di energie alternative. Certo, c'è questa possibilità.
Quindi non la lasciamo neanche respirare e gli diamo subito la parola. Prego. You want to...
Thank you. Buongiorno, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellencies, distinguished members of the Turin business community. It's my pleasure to be here today. I'm hoping my slides will not get ahead of me. But I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about some of the important things you must know about Ghana. I have the privilege of being here today to talk to you about investment opportunities in the country. Much has changed in the last 10 to 15 years in terms of economic opportunity, and I'd love to be able to share some of those details with you. Who's controlling the slides? The invisible man. Okay, I'd like to start right from the beginning. Yes, the very first slide, sorry. Yes. For those of you who do not know, the Kakum National Park is the only park in Africa with a canopy walkway about 350 meters long and connects 7 treetops. It provides access to the forest. We also have the Lake Volta, which is the largest reservoir by surface area in the world, and is contained behind the Akosombo Dam. Interesting fact. Next slide, if I may. And of course, did you also know that Ghana and Italy share a common religion in the beautiful game football? This is very important information. Please don't move the slides yet. You all will recognize Mr. Roberto Baggio. 1994 World Cup. And then the redemption picture, fast forward to 1998 World Cup, where he was brought in as a substitute and scored a penalty goal. You'll also recognize the hands of the man, Asamoah Gyan. Fast forward to the last World Cup in South Africa, where he missed a penalty. Tragedy. More tragedy, the screen is gone. So we're waiting to see what happens in Brazil in 2014 with Mr. Asamoah Gyan. Go Team Ghana. But I think there's much more than just the beautiful game of football, the opportunities in tourism, the opportunities in the energy sector. And I would like to spend a bit of time talking to you about some of the exciting things that are happening on our continent. And the reason why we believe that Ghana is the most important gateway to building a portfolio of investments on the African continent. Now, for many of you, you will have some idea of Ghana because there's a nice mix of the Ghanaian community here, and so they must be educating you, apart from football, about other things and other opportunities in Ghana. But the realities are very real, they're very true. There are many fantastic things that are going on the continent, and we believe that Ghana presents the best case for you to build your portfolio of investments on the continent. No pressure. There we go. Yes. So we'll go ahead and start. So if I touch this, will it go off? No? I could go ahead? Okay. All right, there we go. So I'd like to talk very briefly, give you a bit of an overview about Ghana. Most of you will be familiar with the location. Some of you will know that we do have a very long-standing diplomatic and commercial history with Ghana. But there are a number of competitive advantages for considering investment opportunities. Some of you may also have already had certain experiences. And I'm delighted to talk about the Investment Promotion Center and what we can do in our role to support your work and as you consider investment opportunities. I'll also concentrate on some of the specific sectors of investment that have become priority and why you would consider those, and then talk you through what procedures you can anticipate as things have evolved in the country, some of the investment incentives and guarantees that are put by the Investment Promotion Center, and conclude. I'd really like to spend as much time as I can answering as many questions as possible. And so I'm looking forward to this interaction. We're middle income status. We're on the lower side, and we're progressively moving towards upper income status. Within the sub-region, we are the second largest economy. You already know some of the statistics around our population size, and we continue to experience sustained economic growth. The projections remain quite favorable, and of course, as we continue to anticipate more foreign direct investments coming in country, there's every indication that the opportunities continue to expand. And so from an economic perspective, there's much to be said for considering Ghana. I won't dwell on this so much, but again, the trends continue to suggest we'll continue to remain one of the prime areas of destination for foreign direct inflows. That's according to the World Investment Report. And we're continuing to see a number of different micro and macroeconomic initiatives meant to sustain the economic activity that we're experiencing, that I think is accounting for what you're seeing in terms of growth on the continent in general and in Ghana specifically. One of the things that I will spend a bit of time talking about, and I want to preface it with this slide, is talking a little bit about the government's view of public-private sector partnerships. Now, I think that in a decade or 15 years prior, there was as much clarity around public-private sector partnerships and their framework. But that obviously has changed, and a lot of it is focused on delivery infrastructure and service-related type projects and initiatives. And so you'll see this broad gamut of different interventions meant to leverage public assets and funds with private sector resources from both the local and international markets, facilitating these investments with the creation of an enabling environment. So there is a public-private sector unit within the Ministry of Finance. They're there to support initiatives, particularly on the funding side for major infrastructural development projects. I'm made to understand that Turin is recognized as for the automobile industry, as well as railway systems in Italy, and I'm certain that your experiences can be brought to bear on this side in respect of our public-private initiative. You'll see that in some of the subsequent slides. I'll also talk about the provision of the framework for developing efficient risk-sharing mechanisms. So it's not always going to have to be some sort of sovereign guarantee before you will feel comfortable to enter into these public-private sector partnerships. So I wanted to preface that because you'll see quite a lot of the detail in the slides references public-private sector partnerships. Here are some more economic indicators. May I just add, Your Excellency, Madam Ambassador, that we do have these slides in Italian on the GIPC website. Please don't ask me to speak any Italian. I will not do well. But I'm sure if I stay long enough, I'll get much better. But these are some economic indicators that give you a sense of where we have progressed in terms of GDP growth, certainly in managing the reserves that are available, and straight off of our 2013 budget statements. Ghana's competitive advantage, I mean, it goes without saying. The statistics are verifiable and they're there. I've talked a bit about the macro and political stability, absolutely monumental. Some of you will certainly have heard of a number of different political issues that may have arisen, and we have been able to successfully overcome them. Clearly, our credentials in terms of political stability, really you'd be pressed to find any like it on the continent, and that makes us particularly appealing. Certainly recognizing the investment incentives and tax holiday and customs exemption regime that has been put in place to support your individual initiatives. All of these, including ranking in terms of business-friendly environment within the sub-region, certainly make us a very strong case for considering investment opportunities on the continent. I will talk about some of the key sectors and the specific opportunities that are available to this audience, particularly in the oil and gas sector. As you all know, Ghana's recently been one of the latest countries on the continent to identify significant reserves in oil and gas. I'd also talk about the energy sector and some of the investment opportunities there. Infrastructure, I mentioned earlier, roads, public housing, property development, rail transport, and ports facilities. One of the big focus areas for the government is agriculture. More than 70% of our communities are agrarian in respect of economic activity, so that's certainly a huge opportunity area. The tourism sector, also just as important when you consider what I said about Kakum National Park. There are quite a number of opportunities in that sector. Manufacturing, including agro-processing, attendant to the agriculture sector, and then also the services sector, which accounts for more than 60% of all of the commercial activity that generates a lot of the FDI that we see coming into the country. So I'll start off with oil and gas sector, reminding you to please visit the GIPC website. You'll find this information and quite a bit more available there in your language as well. So I invite you to take a look. But if we just consider the estimated field size for what's already been discovered at 400 million barrels to cover 1 billion barrels, that's just from the Jubilee field. We're one of those countries with vast tracts of irrigable land that's available for purposes of agricultural activity. And so large-scale farming is a possibility. As I said, there are a number of different industries, obviously, under agriculture. One of the big ticket ones is certainly the poultry industry. And then, of course, for those of you with a more artistic view, there's also the floriculture, exotic flower industry that continues to grow. I've been very interested and pleased to see a lot of interest in that. So the agriculture sector also presents an important opportunity. I invite you to consider that. The tourism sector is another very interesting and exciting area of opportunity. As I said, certainly in terms of the services, because we continue to be a really important destination for major conferences, exhibitions within the sub-region and on the continent, there's a requirement for more hospitality and tourism-related services. And so multi-hotel resorts, single hotel resorts, hostel accommodations, business hotels, the food and beverage services, the entertainment services, leisure and sports services. These are all attendant requirements because of the investments that would be made in the hospitality sector in general. There are a number of different opportunities, interactions with the Ministry of Tourism. We can certainly get into very specific opportunity areas who are interested in it. But certainly, for those of you who haven't visited Ghana, Movenpick is probably one of the premier hotels. And below that image, Kintampo waterfalls. There are a number of other areas where there is an opportunity, and you will be supported to invest in multi-hotel type resort facilities, etc. This is another very interesting area. I didn't mention one of the other exciting opportunities, which has been in medical tourism. I've been very surprised and pleased that the medical sector is showing a very keen interest in Ghana as a potential destination for medical services, medical support services. That's something to think about. As you consider investing in the tourism sector, if it's something you're interested in. Manufacturing. This is particularly interesting for those of you who are in this sector because there's such a tremendous level of support behind it. Apart from the Ghana Investment Promotion, we do have a Ghana Free Zones Board, in addition to a Ghana Export Promotion Council. The Export Promotion Council tends to concentrate on non-traditional type exports, and so if you're involved in food processing of non-traditional type agricultural products, there's certainly an opportunity to be supported to gain access into the rest of the sub-region. Certainly cocoa processing, you will all know our history of producing exceptional cocoa. We'd like that to the next step in the value chain by processing the cocoa. When it comes the pharmaceutical sector is another important area of opportunity for manufacturing. High-value garments, wood processing and manufacturing, salt production, major opportunity area. There are major reserves in salt in country, particularly in the central regions, and manufacturing, light manufacturing industry for electricals and electronic products. For those of you who are tracking some of the reports in the media, you'll know that we've had some major players like Philips International come into the country with, an intent on making Ghana a potential hub location for access into the sub-region. And so I would imagine that these present very strong cases for those of you who are considering possibly investing in the manufacturing sector. Services is also one of those key opportunity areas. One of the things that I'll mention here as you consider some of the detail on this slide. As an investment promotion center, we're well aware that it's not enough to just make the investment. We want to be able to demonstrate that we're building the capacity of the Ghanaian professional community to respond and meet your labor requirements. And so we're actively facilitating discussions between the Ghanaian private sector and academia so that you remain assured that you have access to a very qualified, strong labor force in support of your investments and would not necessarily have to expend so much on expatriate requirement not be necessary. And so